Welcome to the Mindful Nomad podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez. This podcast is an exploration into the world of creatives, community leaders, and entrepreneurs, taking a deep dive into their lives, focusing strongly on lifestyle, spirituality, mental health, and education. So grab a seat, relax, and join me for this exciting journey through conversations with other mindful nomads. Sweet, so welcome back to another episode of Mindful Nomads. Today we have Matty Caine, or shall I say founder of Best Peasants CIC, a non-for-profit company in Liverpool. Mm-hmm. He's a fellow Scouser, and do you want to kind of we'll just get it out the way, like tell us a little bit about yourself. And
okay, so I'm Matty. I founded First Person Project in 2019, officially anyway. Following a long career in the NHS, really. I'm a mental health nurse by background, but I've worn many hats over that time. I can maybe go into a few of them as we go. But started First Person Project in 2019 and wanted to try and do mental health in Liverpool a little bit different. So, yeah. Do you want me to tell you how? Yeah,
exactly. Next question, yeah.
So basically, as I mentioned, a lot of my career was spent kind of in kind of traditional mainstream roles, leading services, managing different services up and down the country, really. Mental health services, that is. There's a lot of limitations to kind of mental health services they are. I think the general public these days know what the limitations are. Waiting lists, and even when you do get to the front of the queue, the service isn't always the most efficient. This is not slagging people off or whatever, it's just pointing out the limitations to the model. The other thing as well is, I'd been going on about these types of things for a long time and trying to come up with what I'd consider to be kind of innovative ways of dealing with it that didn't require a lot of spend. And for some time in my career, I was stood on the naughty step a little bit because you're basically coming up with something which isn't the model, and it was essentially around putting people at the heart of everything that we did. Now that's not just kind of some sort of gimmicky thing. It's literally, if you've got a service, it is run and led by the people, not just someone's involved every month. They literally, everything that's good about that service, it's because of the people in the communities. And then the other kind of difference really is, instead of focusing upon what's wrong about a person or a community, you focus upon what's strong about them. So you have a very mental health focus rather than a mental illness focus. You welcome everybody, you keep it free at the point of delivery, and then anything that's good about that organisation is because of the people that run it. So if the organisation was to fold, all that goodness, all that social wealth still exists. And that's what I was trying to do within an NHS framework. Obviously didn't always work. Sometimes it did, but didn't always work. And decided to step out. There's a whole personal chunk there, which we might get into, but yeah.
I mean, that I was kind of going to go down that route, like in terms of why mental health for you.
Okay. So I'm a failed joiner, by the way, just point that out. I'm half all right at it, but it wasn't for me. I'm from Everton, and I think,
which is it goes to like the worst football team in the city.
Yeah, well, I'm an Everton fan. Just point that out. And I haven't come across like Wavertree Rovers yet. So, do you know what I mean? What's going on?
I used to play for them.
No, but basically, I'm a Liverpool fan. Just get that out of the way. But no, Everton, much like most of Liverpool, to be honest with you, with the exception of probably about 2 or 3 places, there's quite a lot of socio-economic deprivation. It's full of the best people in the world who, if they had two shillings to rub together, they would give you it, but most of the time they don't. And there's lots of reasons for that, particularly in the north end of the city. There's quite a lot of deprivation. Now, I'm from a place like that now. I'm very proud to be from that place. But it doesn't always present people with the best opportunities. So you get very few choices, really. And I don't want to sit here and sound like Tupac or something like that. I'm not trying to do that, right? But it's a reality. There's a lot of easy choices that you get presented with that aren't always the most, sensible, sometimes legal choices. And young people are getting faced with this every day. So when it come to me finishing school, I didn't really go to school. I wasn't at least I didn't feel at that point I was naturally academic. And when it comes to 16, it was like, what are you going to do now? I wasn't in a position where, you know, my family could particularly support me longer term. We didn't have a lot of money, still don't. But it was a case of, okay, well, go and get a trade. You know, you're about to say, well, you're the same age as me, so you know what I mean. Went and done carpentry, and I was coaching football in the evenings and things. Anyway, long story short, the apprenticeship finished, and they got rid of us because they would have had to start paying us proper money. So, of course, I had to get a job. The Echo then, you know, he printed the jobs in the Echo. So my man at the time was like, there's a job here working with these two guys with schizophrenia. He literally said this in the Echo. These two guys with schizophrenia up in Belle Vale, support worker. I was a bit like, I can't do that. And I mean, look back now, I was quite embarrassed, really. I'm quite embarrassed and ashamed of the way I thought about people with schizophrenia. All of the misconceptions that people have, obviously as an 18-year-old kid, I had them as well. But it was a job. Through the football coaching, I was good with people. At least I could speak to people. So I went and done that. Took to it like a duck to water. And fell into uni when I was 19. And I've never left. So I've gone from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. All involving mental health, business, leadership, that type of stuff. Managed to become a mental health nurse early on in my 20s. And then, yeah. And I've hopefully been able to make a positive difference. But like I mentioned before, within the framework that I work within for over 10 years, it's not always about doing the best job for the people. Sometimes it's about tick boxing and things like that. And I'm not trying to criticise, but that is what it's about. Getting people through the door rather than preventing them coming near the door. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And first hand as a person as well, you've also had to deal with the NHS.
Yeah, so basically, so skipping around a bit, I mean, I didn't. When you grow up in the same way, kind of that I did, and maybe that yourself did, you're exposed to things, you experience things that, looking back, you might not realise are traumatic, but they actually are. When you view kind of maybe the childhood and upbringing we had through a trauma-informed lens, you see that there's a lot of things that we take for granted and that we maybe whitewash and say, oh, it's not trauma, but actually it is. And the kind of the litmus test really is, you know, would you allow anyone close to you to see some of the stuff? And the answer is always no. So if you wouldn't allow someone to see it, then it's traumatic, it's traumatising. So there was always kind of that exposure there. And as a young man at the time, not now obviously, but as a young man at the time, you kind of react and act in certain ways and you don't realise why you're doing that. A lot of the time it comes out in anger and frustration and all this type of stuff. And people just think it's growing up, which it is partly, but there's a lot of other stuff. So there was all that bubbling under. But I didn't think I had a mental health problem as such. And then in 2018, I was stable, had a good career, had all the things that you would want, you know, kind of at least materialistically and from a stability point of view. I was doing all right, I felt. But my mum developed something called sepsis. She was 67 and she sadly she died. She became unwell really quickly. She was on life support for about eight days and then she died. Now, looking back on that, the way I responded to it was very robotic, very professional. I would go in wearing normal clothes, but I would have an NHS lanyard on. It was very odd behaviour looking back. But it was obviously, I'd never had a mum dying before, so how would you react? I'd never lost anybody close to me. Anyone human, at least. You know, I'd obviously lost dogs and things, but it's not the same. And then, anyway, I became really quite unwell for about 9 or 10 months after that. I didn't respond at first for the first kind of 4 or 5 weeks, and then I was given a label of psychotic depression, which is basically the worst of what you can imagine depression is, really kind of flat, low mood, suicidal, no motivation, can't get out of bed, all that type of stuff, as well as something called psychosis, which is it means something different for a lot of people, but usually it's you experience things that other people can't. You might see things, hear things, smell things, taste things, feel things that other people can't. And you also have really strange, odd, kind of bizarre beliefs about things that aren't true, really. But the firm beliefs and you think that they are true. So in my case, I would have full conversations with my mum. Obviously, she wasn't there. I would go down at like 3 o'clock in the morning and have cups of tea with her, and she wasn't there. I would go looking for her in places where I thought she would be, and I was like determined and like had this really strong belief that she was going to be where she usually would be. Obviously, she wasn't, and she didn't come.
Would you just act this out?
It was like what I'm sat here now. It was completely normal for me at the time. Now I'm looking back on it, and I didn't have the control. It might sound like I had control at that point, but I had no control. I was just acting in exactly the same way as I am now. It was all as real as you can hear me now.
Like you could see her.
I was having a cup of tea with her, you know. And it was simple things like I mean, I wouldn't encourage people to try and if somebody was experiencing something like that, I wouldn't encourage them to try and like question whether it was real or not, because you might end up causing a lot more distress. But somebody said to me, "When have you ever known your mum not to finish a cup of tea?" And I was like, "Never." Like, she was known. You know, I've literally got a tattoo of a teapot on this arm and stuff like that. I mean, she was literally known for it. And of course, her cup was full still. So it's little things like that. So there was little hairline cracks in the belief. I can remember that happening. But then what happens is you then create another delusion, essentially, to back up the first one. And it's fascinating, and but it's obviously quite distressing and stuff. Now, sometimes when I'm training people and I use these stories, I'll start laughing, and I don't want people to, because I might do that today. I don't want that to be kind of misunderstood or misplaced. It's not nice going through that. You're obviously very vulnerable. But I was with my mum, and that's where I wanted to be. So a lot of the things, you imagine kind of, you ever lost anybody, if you could have them back for a bit. The stories, the experiences that you had together, well, I was having. So when I look back, it's just a memory to me. And there was nothing distressing happening. We were just having a cup of tea, having a laugh. She was probably taking the piss out of someone or whatever, do you know what I mean? Because that's what she did. She was funny. So I do like have a little chuckle about it at times. I don't want it to come across inappropriate, but and anyway, yeah, so with a combination of some life changes, medication at the time, and counselling, it started to change. And here I am. I can't say it's all A-okay all the time, because it isn't, but there you go.
And then First Person Project was after that?
Yeah, so basically, during that time, I did sign End My Own Life 3 times. That was at a time when obviously it wasn't so nice. So I tried to take my own life during 2018 3 times. And obviously it didn't work. Thankfully it didn't work. But at the end, I say at the end of the journey's always continuing, but kind of at the end of 2018, it was like, okay, look, I was about 6 months into feeling the way I was. I was on the sick from work and stuff like that. I wasn't particularly well supported from the NHS at that point. Now, a little disclaimer, not all NHS trusts are the same, by the way. This was a particular trust up in Manchester that weren't very good. But I did have people around me. I did have kind of, I was with my partner and all that, and I was seeing her, and these ideas and this practice that I'd kind of developed in the NHS hadn't gone anywhere. It was all a good experience that I still had. And I had a choice. I could either sink or swim. So I decided to start kind of doing what I wanted to do with First Person Project. But it was all very idealistic, free at the point of delivery. Well, obviously, you run businesses, you know yourself. How do you fund that? I knew nothing about business. I've never studied business. I've never done anything. I didn't even watch any videos on business or any of this. So I didn't have a business idea really. An idea about business at that point. Obviously I do now, but I just literally strapped my backpack on, which I've still got. It's behind me, and I went door to door on my days off. Said I was never going to go back to NHS management, and I never did. Started, basically became a locum, so like an agency nurse basically. Condensed all my hours down into 3 days, and I was doing that. I was doing a bit of teaching and stuff around that. But then the days that I wasn't in kind of work, if you like, I was going door to door with this new approach, and the new approach was simple. It was, don't look at me as the professional with all the power. Let's see how much of the power you already have, and let's see how we can expose that. And it was using coaching techniques, mentoring. I might advocate for somebody, go along to appointments with them, provide education, that type of stuff. And then I would sneak in kind of bits of what you might call therapy and stuff, but I wasn't doing therapy. It was just tools and techniques that anyone really could learn Obviously, I did have the kind of background to do that, but and that was it. And that was for the people who let me in. But you can imagine how that went. Going to places like Toxteth and even Everton, Norris Green, Anfield. These kind of, I hate labels, but these kind of socio-economically deprived areas, and knocking on doors and introducing myself. Obviously, still not really all well at that point, you know. From a mood point of view, I was still pretty depressed. But I was knocking and I was saying, I want to talk to you about mental health. You can imagine how it went, yeah? Doors get slammed, go away, blah, blah, blah. But I was persistent, and I went back. And I went back with me police check and all this, my DBS check, and my nursing and midwifery PIN number so they could check me and whatever. And that was that. And then it slowly built up, and then COVID happened. And it was a bit of a blessing for us, if I'm honest with you. I know it wasn't for thousands of others, but for us, those little 3 meters and that paper mask kind of convinced people that I was safe when I could have still been a mass murderer, you know. I wasn't, I'm not, but it was like, okay, yeah, now we'll talk to you, that's cool. And it started off in the front garden, and then they might feel more secure to take me in the living room or whatever, and we just started helping people that way throughout the kind of early stage of the pandemic. I did decide to go and get a business education at that point. I went and done a master's degree in business in John Moores, and used first person project as pretty much like the ongoing case study, really, to build, to understand, you know, just kind of what is quite basic, but actually from a strategic point of view, you know, some of the things that have served us and continue to serve us now, really, I feel. Yeah.
Do you feel like the experience you had with your own mental health is what kind of led first person to what it is?
Without doubt. So as much as the professional thing is useful for obvious reasons, you know, and it can be good from a corporate point of view, because I think a lot of corporate partners see that, and I think they feel like a bit more secure that it's legitimate. Personally speaking, I think sometimes it gets in the way a little bit of professional stuff, because people don't, when I'm talking about the success that first person project have had, which I'm dead proud of, I think people will equate it with the professional stuff. Oh yeah, because you know what you're doing. It's like, no, that's not what it is. It's the model's working, and the model works because the people who also know what they're doing, but they don't have that professional background, it's working. So it's definitely the people power stuff, and that comes from my experience. You know, first person project is essentially a living tribute to my mum, really. And my mum was as far away from a mental health professional as you can get. You know, she was just a very, very normal woman from a very normal place, and she'd lived a very normal life. You know, she cleaned all her life. That was it, you know, but she was boss.
How did you end up in Everton? Well, how was the story behind that? Or
is it just always been there?
Been there.
So she was, so she was one of 13. So my mum, this is the thing, see, so I'm 35, as I mentioned kind of off thing before. You know, but I'm one of 5, but I'm the baby. So my mum was 67 when she died. She wasn't a young woman. And she did have other things going on, you know. 67 is still too young to die as far as I'm concerned, but it's not 37, do you know what I mean? It's not 47, is it? So her family, so she'd been in Everton all her life pretty much. Her family were in Everton all her life. Now, ironically, you know, there's only really my dad and my sister and my nephews really that are still in Everton. The rest of the family aren't, which is quite funny, but obviously I'm not there either. But it could be Everton, it could be anywhere really. Any Everton, Anfield, for Zachary Walton, they're all the same really. You know, they face the same struggles. Mostly North End, although to be fair, Toxteth has its challenges as well. Speak has its challenges. Wavertree has its challenges. Kenny's on the border in it really, but Kenny definitely has its challenges.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, so there you go. You know,
I think most of Liverpool has its challenges.
Most of it
apart from Mossley Hill.
Well, apart from Mossley Hill and Allerton and Crosby, well, some of Crosby, Formby. We count Formby. We'll count Formby. We'll count it just because it helps me make a point.
Do you know it's funny? Like I went there like to film something a couple of years back, and I remember just feeling like I was in like this strange place. It felt like a weird ghost town, like a weird energy there.
The Truman Show, innit?
Yeah, it felt like I was saying to Max, it felt like Get Out. Have you seen the film?
Get Out.
And
I don't think I have.
Go to like a weird community, and it's
right.
racially diverse. Everyone's looking at me and
God.
just, yeah.
That's okay from the okay.
Right. A bit.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. It's I've got a mate, he might even watch this. I've got a mate who lives in Formby, and what does he say? It's about the lifestyle. You're buying a lifestyle when you buy a house in Formby, and it's just like, come on.
You're buying a retirement.
You're buying, you're buying a lifestyle. It's, I mean, there's parts of it, I'm sure, that are nice, but it's certainly not deprived. And I think the thing that like, so what kind of, to continue kind of with the first person project journey really, and it's going to help me kind of make a bit of a point here, is we started getting supporters, we started getting people following us, volunteering and whatever. That enabled us to do more with less really, because we didn't have any money really. And we were able to make a bit of a splash, and then people started to notice us who did and could finance what we were doing and could commission us to do different bits and pieces. So about this time last year, we were commissioned to do a piece of work with Taurus Foundation to look at, to basically bed and embed ourselves within certain communities. Toxteth was one of them. Toxteth, and then you had a couple in the North End, Clubmore and Nonnaskeen. Now all of these areas have been incredible for us. I mean, but they've welcomed us. It's been amazing. Toxteth is a little bit different for us in the sense that we've got a hub in Toxteth, so I feel a bit like I belong there a bit more. You know, I'm there more often than not. And what's amazing about an area like Toxteth is there's so many gifts on offer that people don't see, both in themselves, but like they might see them in others, but some others might not see them. Like from outsiders might not see the gifts that exist within a place like Toxteth. So you can walk down Lodge Lane and you can see the deprivation, you can see different things, or you can see one of the most vibrant streets in the city. Do you know what I mean? It's incredible.
Diverse.
Oh, so diverse. You know, sights, not just sights though, sounds. Everyone's dead friendly. Do you know what I mean? And it's being from the North End. Like I did know obviously Lodge Lane before we got it up down there, but I didn't know it. It wasn't kind of. And there's never any shortage of people around there willing to not just tell you kind of where, you know, to get this bus or basic directions. They'll tell you the ins and outs. They'll say that used to be this and used to be this there, blah, that used to be the bingo, and all. They'll tell you stories. Do you know what I mean? And that's one of the building blocks that we use when we're building communities, kind of stories and narrative. We can talk a little bit about that if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so our approach really, we call our approach socially progressive mental health. So typically, the typical approach to support somebody with a mental health is typical, right? Whether it's a psychological approaches or a pharmacological approach, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's not ways out there that people help themselves with mental health from a spiritual, holistic point of view. Of course there is, but just a typical mainstream approach. To go to your GP, you're going to be offered one, probably two of those things. One involves a long waiting list, and the other one, well, that doesn't always work for everybody, does it? The evidence attached to all this stuff isn't great. Now, when you're working within that, like I was, you can't just jump out and go and provide something completely new, because the NHS is governed by frameworks. You can only do certain things. It's obviously a public sector service. So when we started First Person Project and we were working out what our model was, we kind of had an idea. We knew what the research told us. We knew what we wanted to do in practice, and we knew what the response from the people in communities was. But that's still not a model. That's still kind of a bit of guesswork. So we're looking around and everything else. We come across something called asset-based community development, which is a style of community development. We pulled the main threads of that together with our philosophy on mental health. So our philosophy is proactivity beats reactivity. So, you know, do something in a proactive way. I always talk about lowering your walls and building bigger tables. So, you know, everyone's invited. You don't only act when somebody is unwell. So if you think about a typical approach, a mainstream approach, you only access them services when you're unwell. There's nothing proactive that's happening. The most proactive thing is like labels and the odd campaign that's on the telly. But a lot of the time it's go to your GP because you're feeling low mood. Well, you're already feeling low mood. So go further upstream and cut it off. Act in a proactive, preventative way. So that's one of our philosophies. But the other philosophy is you've got to adopt this critical mindset when it comes to what mental health is and why mental health even matters. And notice I'm saying mental health, not mental illness. So I can give you textbook definitions all day long about mental health. I can I can point to textbook definitions. I can point to several organisations who've got their own definition of mental health. You have to find out what your definition is first. And whenever we open up any work that we do, that's what we start with. Your opinion matters just as much as mine, as a kind of a user of the service, a citizen. So we brought together that philosophy with the asset-based community development stuff, and basically created our socially progressive model. And the way we view communities, the communities are made up of 6 building blocks. So the first building block is individuals. So if you think about a mainstream approach, your mainstream approach only addresses the individual. It only addresses in a reactive way, it only addresses the illness part of the individual. And if that's all you do, you're missing out on the other half of the individual, but you're also missing out on 5 other building blocks that you could address. So individuals, now the individual part is broken down into 3 parts: gifts of head, gifts of heart, gifts of hands, right? So your gifts of your head are the things that you know, the things that you believe, the things that you're aware of, the wisdom you have, yeah? The gifts of heart are the things that you care about. What are you passionate about? What kind of gets you going? You know, what gets you in good spirits? The gifts of the hands are the things that you can do. So in your case, you're a barber. You can also, I've just noticed there, you're like Stanley Kubrick on the cinematography stakes. So you've got all these things. Now, we're only on individual. We've got 5 other building blocks. Now, if I can work with you and get you to understand the gifts that you have, that's cool. But if I can work with you and get you to understand the gifts that other people have, well, without even offering you anything, i.e. therapy, medication, anything, I'm not giving you nothing, you've already got it. So we're focusing on what's strong, right? First. That's one building block. Second building block are associations. So these are the things that exist in the shadows early in communities. So only somebody from within that community would understand what an association is. It's usually a kind of an informal gathering of more than one person, which you might take for granted. So it could be like the little old women who get together for a cup of coffee every week and whatever, or the lads who do a card game, or the kids who play a game of footy. It's not organised, it's just it happens. And we all can link back to this when we've been younger or when we've lived deep in a community. We understand how it works. But don't overlook these things. Like, when you're thinking about mental health, okay, when you're thinking about poor mental health, a lot of the time it's you don't understand the things that you have available to you. So what I say is, proactively, when you're feeling well, try and seek out and find out what's available. Not from an organisational point of view, from an associational point of view, what's happening in your community. The next step, the next building block is institutions. So these are the traditionally organised things that are around your community, the things that serve your community, but also the things that can only work because of your community. So First Person Project is an institution. It's usually typical hierarchical. It's an organisation. It's things like, it can be things like the council, it can be your GP, the police, whatever, but it can also be the community centre. If the community centre is run by someone like First Person Project, for example, or Nomad CSE or whatever, it's still an institution. So there's that. Your job is to work with the individual and try and get them to figure out, well, how can we interact with that institution in the most optimised way? How can that institution interact with us in the most optimised way? And like I say, you build the community's capacity to understand that. Then you've got a physical space. So things like green space and stuff like that. But not just that. You might look at the buildings that are in your community and see if they're being fully optimised. A great example that we work in a community, I won't say which one, but the kids are being priced out of playing football because the football pitch is about 80 quid to thingy. But in the same community, there's a primary school which has a football pitch. So isn't that just a conversation with the school? Now, it might be that the school aren't receptive to it, but if you are with it, they're literally in your community. So you've got a right. You might have to write to your counsellor, you might have to write to your MP, but eventually you can get access to that space because it's in your community. And why shouldn't you? And I actually think 9 times out of 10, at least in our experience, if you approach the school will make it happen. The school will give you an opportunity. So there's 4 building blocks. The 5th building block is exchange. So what forms of exchange can you think of that don't involve money? So if you think about a blockage to how people can help themselves and help their community, they immediately stop at budget. I can't do that because it's going to cost this amount of money. Why are you thinking about money? Like, what other forms of exchange are there? So
I'm not giving you a massage. You've got to back off.
He needs to be honest with you. And a haircut. A foot rub and a candle. I could go on. Go on, I'm teaching the gifts of exchange here. No, but seriously, so it's things like that. Yeah, so you've hit the nail on the head. Alternative forms of exchange, but it could be. We were talking about a guy before when we off camera about who pays it forward quite a lot. It's kind of his thing. The guy from good massage guy. So there's that, paying it forward. There's different forms of exchange. There's favours. There's whatever, right? And then you've got that fifth thing, which is what we started with, and that's understanding culture, meaning, narrative, storytelling. So the things that turn a space into a place, basically. You might walk down Lodge Lane and you might see a bus stop, and you might not even look at it because it's just another bus stop. But you might walk down Lodge Lane with somebody who met the wife at that bus stop. Do you see what I mean? And now all of a sudden it's a conversation. And I know it seems small, and it probably is small, but we do take it for granted. These things add up, and all of a sudden now, without a service coming in and injecting thousands of pounds in there, if we turn that lens and looked at our communities in that way, immediately you see what we have. That doesn't mean that we don't have things that are missing. That doesn't mean that we don't have things that need addressing. We do have these things as well, but by understanding what you have, understanding where you are, it's easier to map out and plan how you get to where you want to be. And that's how we work.
And I think you were telling me, like, in an earlier conversation about some of the people you have involved within, and some of the sharing that you do offer.
Mm-hmm. So basically, so the way we work is we accept referrals in a traditional way. You know, we accept referrals from anyone. It could be professionals, your GP, the NHS, anywhere at all. Now, a typical conversation when you get a referral, if you're in a mainstream service, would be straight away, you could be the kindest, most well-intentioned person in the world, but the minute you kind of enter into a conversation as a professional, you are immediately in control and in charge. It doesn't mean anything about you, it's just that profession represents something. So immediately the person's going to be on the back foot and passive, or there's more chance that can happen. So you've got to kind of take that kind of thing out of it. So when we're not doing an assessment on somebody when we get a referral, we're not looking for the things that they don't have. We're not looking for the things that we are going to provide. We're just having a simple conversation with them and trying to find out what's going on. Out of that, you know, some people will offload and tell us why they've come to us, and that might be quite negatively tinged to start with. Our job is to keep our ears pricked up and listen out for the things that we think we can use, these things, these assets, these gifts. And then what we'll do is we'll then turn that back in, the lens back in on the person and say, okay, well, what I'm hearing is this. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Well, do you think that you could use any of this? And then some people, if they're confident enough, if they're willing enough, they will work towards them becoming the solution, not just for themselves, but for their community. So an example, we've got a full timetable of activities in the north and the south of the city. All of the activities on the timetable started off with a conversation, just like I've just described. There was a referral of some sort, whether it's a professional referral or a self-referral, somebody just walking in off the street. And we now have men's clubs, women's clubs in the north and the south of the city, a writing club, holistic kind of well-being sessions, Reiki, we do all sorts of stuff. And like I say, you know, the vast majority of it is not just people-led, but people started, it was people's idea. All we do is facilitate that to happen. So we might buy some of the materials that's needed. We'll give the space, we'll do some of the marketing stuff and get people through the door. We'll accept the referrals, we'll manage the risk. We'll do all of that stuff that we can with our skills. See, it's the same idea, just applied to us. We'll use our skills to manage that, which allows the person, so Paul, for example, runs the writing club. All he needs to do is turn up, connect with people, put the kettle on, teach writing, get off. we do the rest. That's the intervention, but it's not us. It's the people doing it for themselves.
You're just kind of connecting the dots between
That's exactly
everyone.
it. Yeah.
And how do you have staff in a team?
So there's we have a small staff team, but we like I mentioned before, we use the same model on ourselves. So I have a lot of skills and background, experiences that I can share when needs be. But so does Caroline, who's one of our guys. She's my other half as well. And Michael. I met Michael in football. Michael was my mate before he worked with us. But we've all got lived experience. We've all experienced poor mental health. We still do at times. And I think it's about going, okay, well, before we start going textbook and we start looking at what we need and everything else, let's look at what we've got. And we will do things, like I say, like Zumba, like football, like Reiki and everything else, because these are the things that we have. We were playing guitar last week in the hub. It wasn't a guitar group for mental health and none of this. It was just people, oh, there's a guitar. And next thing you know, we're writing songs about this gaff down the street that sells falafel. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Now, I personally came away from that feeling amazing, but I'm supposed to be the professional here. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's creating that unity. But the other thing as well is our model, because we're trying to build the capacity of communities to basically run themselves and look after themselves, we're actively looking for people to volunteer for their community, not just to do general volunteering. It's specifically to do specific jobs in their community. So we actually have about 83 volunteers across the city.
Wow. Doing
a lot of different things. They aren't always doing volunteer work. Like I say, it's very specific. So, we'll count the likes of Paul, but we also have Darren, who is doing the holistic wellbeing stuff, breath work, meditation. He's actually gone to India for 5 weeks now, so I don't know what we're going to do without him, but he's amazing. Honest, he's boss. The women's group was the idea of a woman referred in from the GP, Pauline, in the North End. Sue had suggested that, you know what I mean? This is how it works. So these count as volunteers. But then you'll have people knocking on doors and delivering kind of leaflets for us and facilitating different things and whatever. But it's for their community. It's not for any other community. It's for theirs. Yeah.
And how do you see it kind of growing?
So basically, we fortunately, the people who we are commissioned by, because we're a social enterprise essentially, so we have a charitable and social aim, but we operate like any other business. So whilst we're able to go for grants here and there, we don't go for a lot. Most of what we do is self-funded through commissions and things like that. Well, we'll get commissions one end, and then we have obviously overheads attached to that commission, but then whatever's left, most of the businesses will call it profit, we call it surplus. We use that surplus to reinvest however we want. So I know you know how it is, let's say you've run a CIC, but you know what I'm saying.
I haven't got to the end of the tax year yet.
That's it.
Year one.
Yeah, I know. We've got something I can help you with that if you want. But basically, how we want it to grow is we already have a presence up in the north and the south of the city, but we want to have another hub in the north end to match the one we've got in the south end. If everything goes to plan between now and June, we will definitely have that. We'll probably double in size in terms of workforce. Fortunately, the people who commission us are up to now. They're all really happy, but we've had some indication that they're going to continue to commission us. And then because we've held back on big lottery bids, for example, we haven't actually used anything like that to grow. We've got to this point of our own steam, really. We've now got the opportunity to put in for things like that if we wanted to, not just sustain, but actually grow. And that's probably what we're going to do. Another hat, I keep talking about these hats. I'm like a hat stand. Like millets. They do hats, don't they, millets? But anyway. So one of the other things is I'll give, because I've got the business background I've got, I'm doing a doctorate now in business, essentially, looking at social enterprise as being the solution really for improving mental health across Liverpool City region. That's, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So that's my piece of research now. And I really believe in that. I believe that social enterprise has got the power to be that sustainable solution. So I'm quite committed to the model, and hopefully it works, or I'll be asking you for a job, probably. No, I'm sure it will work. So we've got an idea to expand. I also do kind of social leadership training and consultancy and stuff. So we've already had a hand in other organisations growing their social businesses. So there's a few good ones on the horizon that'll be coming out in the next few months, really, which I'm very happy to say we've had a hand in developing. But we don't take anything from them. We just do it as part of what we do. And there's a few already out there, which some of them mention us, some of them don't. But we'll keep that under another hat. So you know, we want to grow, and then hopefully once Liverpool's boxed, we'll go further afield.
And what was the thought process behind social enterprise versus charity?
So basically, I've got nothing against charities, but I think the charity model can cause more problems than good. Don't get me wrong. There's certain things, especially in this day and age, where if a certain charity didn't exist, people would literally die of hunger, which is I can't believe I'm even saying that in England. You know, I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's the fact. So I'm not hating on charities. I think there's some very good charities out there, but I didn't want to be a charity. I strongly believe in sustainability, and I don't believe with a charity model you can sustain. I think you're always looking for the next fund. I had apart from the things I've mentioned, you know, I could have just moved jobs in the NHS. I had a decent career. I'd worked hard for the career that I had. And it had to be something that I really, really believed in to get me to step away from that. Obviously, it was a combination of things, including the personal stuff, but I didn't want to step away from it to run a charity where we kind of parachute into a community, give them like, oh, we've got this scheme, blah, 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 but you've got to be aged over this, and you've got to, you know, have one leg and do a backflip on a Wednesday, and you can access our service. You know, one of them. And then once the money's finished, that's it. We parachute, we get it back off, type of thing. I didn't want to be that, and I didn't really know what social enterprise was. I thought there was charity and there was business. I didn't realise there was a kind of hybrid, although it's not that simple, but I didn't realise that existed. So when I found out it did, it was like, well, okay, well, how would you make money? Which was another question. And actually, we've been lucky to date, and we're in the middle of a recession, and I'm not naive to say that we might not, you know, that we'll always make money, and it's not as if we make millions, but the money that we have been able to make, it's because we have skills and gifts and experiences that we can sell, and people want to buy because they need them for different things, and I'm more in line with something like that because of sustainability reasons, really. That's why, not a charity.
Can people still actually donate on a personal level, though?
Yeah, of course can. Yeah. So we, like I say, we're not. We will take charitable donations and we will spend it really transparently. I suppose it's things like that like I add the little caveat. It's like if there's somebody out there that wanted to donate to us, I would say, okay, where are we going to spend it? And I would have that conversation with the donor, which I think is a bit different, because I think most places would be like, okay, that's just going to help us run it or whatever. I think there's an example where somebody gave us, it wasn't a huge amount, but I was appreciative of it. It was about 350 quid early on, and it was a young lady had taken her own life. They'd done a football tournament, they raised some money, they wanted us to have some of the money. The reason they wanted us to have some of the money was because although we don't badge ourselves up as a suicide prevention charity or anything like that, we do suicide prevention, obviously, and because we have an open kind of model, anyone can access our service. I think we don't exclude people. So they gave us this money. I was like, okay, well, where do you want to spend it? They were like, well, where do you need to spend it? I was like, no, where do you want to spend it? So we ended up doing a short suicide prevention project by women for women. So stuff like that. So if we were to receive anything, I would probably have a conversation with somebody about where we're going to spend it. We're doing a GoFundMe. It's not out yet, but keep your eyes peeled. Because we're running, the 6 of us running the half marathon this, what are we? Yeah,
only a half?
Listen, mate, honest. Oh, like I can't even run a bat. I'm running a half marathon, but apparently I'm doing it, right? So the 6 of us, and
in Liverpool, is it?
Yeah, Liverpool half marathon, the end of this month. Don't ask me.
End of this month?
I haven't said, mate. Don't worry about it. Worry about. I might need more than a massage at the end of that. Resuscitation. Nomad resuscitator. That's what you should be called. But anyway, so I'll be putting a GoFundMe out, but I'll be very clear on the GoFundMe where the money's going to be spent. to the penny. So that's how we like to do it, rather than just kind of taking in and kind of, I feel sometimes the money can be squandered in that way, and I don't want to take people's hard-earned money during times like this and squander it. It's not my bag, baby.
Yeah. Is kind of, with the goal for you to be able to not looking at a franchise model, but using it as an example, to be able to replicate across different places?
Definitely. So I'm under no, I say this, I'm really honest about it. I don't think I'm the worst person in the world when it comes to being with people. I've done it for such a long time. Like I say, for 17 years now I've been doing this. But there's people out there that are better with people than I am. I'm under no illusions that my skill set these days, my comfort zone, if you like, is I'm very much about kind of setting strategy and trying to lead stuff. You know, there's people who are better with people than me. And I believe in people generally anyway. I mean, I think the model would suggest that. So I think that there's a way of packaging up what we do and kind of putting it out there as I suppose a franchise is probably the word, isn't it? But that type of thing. Because I think it can be replicated. I don't think it'd take much to replicate it anyway. I don't think you'd have to be hugely smart to replicate something, but if you can do it, go ahead, cool. You know, I'm not dead protective of it. I think the people behind it make it work, and not just me. You know, we have a good staff team. We have good people involved now, but that's only from the communities that we've kind of been allowed into and we've been welcomed into. Say if we were to replicate this in somewhere like Manchester or wherever, one of the places you go to, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
I'll go Manchester.
That'd be nice. You go to Manchester. Well, I was going to say I want to come to like some of these places you go, like Uzbekistan and places like that. Come with first person project. But yeah, no. If you were to take it somewhere else, I do think that it's achievable. I just think it needs to have the right leadership behind it and intentions. Really, it's really easy to get this model wrong. We're not perfect. You know, there's times when we'll still like prescribe certain things and say like, oh well, yeah, dude, and like we'll kind of adopt that professional role, and you have to go, whoa, can't do that. Do you know what I mean? You know, so, but it would just need to be kind of handled well. Why are you asking?
So, how does someone who runs a project around mental health keep on top of their own mental health? Because it's got to be draining.
Oh, it is draining. It is draining. There's going to be people who watch this who go, come on now, Matty, tell the truth, right? So I'm just going to tell the truth. I don't do it very well, I'll be dead honest. But I'm getting better at it. It is a labour of love at times. I think, forget for a minute that this is an organisation. This is an ongoing dedication to me mum, right? And I'm not completely out the woods when it comes to what happened in 2018. So my kind of stance on things up until not even that long ago was, well, just keep going, and you don't have to stop and think then. Do you know what I mean? And that's not good, not advised, not professionally endorsed. You're not getting a stamp for that. That's not the way to do it. But it's one of these things, it's like we wouldn't be kind of where we are at the minute if it wasn't for that kind of keep going. You know what it's like, you run businesses, you know what it's like. But in terms of what I do and what I'm getting better at, I'm really into jiu-jitsu and that type of stuff. I'm not particularly good at jiu-jitsu. Heavily invested in it for some time. For at least the past year or so, and then recently changed clubs and just trying to get back into it. I do play footy when I can and whatever, but a lot of the time for me it's just a case of I quite enjoy still doing a lot of the same type of stuff, but not to do with us. So an example is we have a woman that was referred into us who is she's gone through surgical menopause. She's only in her 40s. Anyway, long story short, she's really passionate. She's got all the tools to be amazing at business, at training and all this type of stuff. And I really enjoy helping people like that to develop their own business ideas and develop stuff like that. It doesn't sound great, but I suppose what I'm saying, like reading between the lines there, is that's a passion of mine. So kind of pursuing whatever it is that you're passionate about, and that for me is one of my passions. Like reading, like doing that type of stuff. Quite like them. Shall I mention the videos? Yeah, I'll mention the videos. I quite like watching ASMR videos, particularly Nomad. But no, in all seriousness, no. It's like
You started off on my videos and you went down the rabbit hole.
That's funny, you know. It's funny. That's the best thing. It's like sat across from Steven Spielberg or something. But no, it did. It's funny how these things kind of come round, innit? You know, I believe in that type of stuff. I believe in kind of like, I won't start talking about feeding the energy to the universe and all that, but I do think kind of things come back around. I do.
Yeah, so we spoke about it a little bit off camera earlier, but we were saying like, so we met up for a coffee a few weeks ago because he pieced together when he was training at my yoga studio that we rent out. He was doing jiu-jitsu in there, and he worked out Nomad, and he was like, "Oh, I've watched these videos." So then anyway, we connected on Instagram. Had a chat, ended up meeting up. Then we also worked out we had a mutual friend, like growing up, like one of my best friends growing up also lived locally to Matty. And it's weird how
it's mad, isn't it?
The world works like that.
It's mad. But no, this is it, you know. And I'm probably, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to tune into podcasts like this to figure out how to manage my mental health a bit better. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, like things like, you've just got to find whatever it is that you're into. I think I personally don't find like the textbook approach the best. When I'm teaching or training people around mental health, I'll use some of the best evidence-based stuff that I can find, and it's simple things like kind of getting out in the natural health service, you know, kind of getting out there in nature and seeing greenery and, you know, all that type of stuff. I strongly believe in that type of stuff. I think it's good. Is it good for everybody? I don't know. Can everybody do it? Probably not. But things like that, and getting organised with your thoughts. I quite like have you probably come across Eisenhower's Matrix? Have you seen this? The important agent kind of thing. No. Anyway, it's
similar to like CBT, like
no. It's not a psychology thing. I mean, I do use a lot of that stuff as well, to be fair. But no, this is more to get organised.
Okay.
So I'm really funny of them a lot. Like I get kind of, I have to be. To be fair, if you worked alongside me, you'd probably think I was like a bag of monkeys or something. I'm just like chaos. But in terms of, and I can see all of the cogs, I can see all of the dots, and I do know how to join them. What I'm not very good at is explaining that to other people. The way I see it is, it's going to take me all this time, and I could be using that time to do
I'm exactly the same.
Right, it takes ages. So just leave me to it. I mightn't look the most comfortable, but trust me, I'm all right. But in my head, I'll use things like Eisenhower's Matrix. So obviously Eisenhower was a president, wasn't he? And of America. And the Matrix is it's very simple, really. But in one column you've got important, and in the other column you've got agent. And you just segregate. You just kind of separate the things that you've got going on in your life into those two columns. You address the agent, and the important can wait. Now, the columns never end. By the way, they just carry on. But it does help me. And then I will use basic CBT stuff as well, where I look at values, where I kind of discover. It takes a bit of investment in yourself, but where you look inward and you try and find out what values it is you hold the most dear, really, and then you try and rank them. And what you find is, once you do that, you put that initial kind of bit of legwork in. You find that if you imagine your values are like the roots of a flower, and then sprouting off those values are these things in life, these assumptions that we make in life. So for me, like number one value for me is like loyalty. So the stem of the flower represents these assumptions. So stemming off from loyalty would be things like, it's important that you tell the truth to the people close to you. It's important that you aren't disloyal to people. You must be loyal. All these kind of musts and I need to, all these rules that you have, right? Now that stem then leads to the head of the flower. The head of the flower essentially represents your thoughts, your feelings and your behaviours. Now most people in the world only they exist up here. So something happens, they'll think a certain way, they'll feel a certain way, they'll behave a certain way. And then once they kind of understand that, they think that that's it, that's all you need to do. The reality is that stuff's going to keep happening the way it does unless you understand the stem and the roots, basically. So you've got to invest in yourself a little bit and try and understand what it is that drives you, because that will help you understand the stuff up here. And the thing with things like that is if you don't use it, you lose it. So you've got to kind of keep going back and practicing that. So I do quite a lot of that as well. Yeah. Oh, I like the guitar. There's something else.
Falafel.
Music, I love falafel. There's a gaff, shout out to that gaff on Lodge Lane. It's called Falafel Chef. I swear to God,
Best falafel.
Unbelievable. And he's the nicest fella you'll ever meet. Like, he's going to go, I reckon he'll be one of these guys who like end up like having a chain or something like that at restaurants. He's so smart. Anyway, enough about me. Promo hashtag ad.
What you're saying about all of those things, like, I find that, you know, having gone down the traditional approach of, you know, getting help with mental health and stuff like that, versus finding, and I haven't tried a service like yours, but people coming to you and then being able to try different things that maybe help them with their mental health is such a good thing. You know, I found out the things that work for me, not all the time. It changes, but it's not the traditional route of just popping a tablet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
This is it. There's lots of... So the thing with Liverpool is the non-profit scene, the third sector scene in Liverpool it's great. It's brilliant. Personally speaking, and just from what my research tells me, it's not joined up. So you'll have an amazing thing going on in one in fact, not even a postcode, in one estate, and then the next estate, there's another amazing thing going on that nobody knows about, or they don't know about each other. And there's lots of kind of times when this happened early on. Really, you asked before about the charity thing. When I was looking around, I was seeing, say, like, keep it simple. I'm kind of, you know, I can't remember it exactly accurately as I would like to, but something like there's like a mental health support group going on in Fazakerley, and then there's a mental health support group going on just kind of 5 minutes down the road. Both going for the same pot of money, both more like community run rather than kind of business kind of things, and then only one gets the pot of money, or they both get the pot of money but it's split in half, and then they can only offer half a service and it only lasts half the amount of time and everything else. Why didn't they just come together? Now, that's the community leadership part. I'm not saying, the social leadership part. I'm not saying that communities don't have leaders. I know communities have leaders. I'm saying that, do these people know the leaders? Do they know why they lead in the way they do? Do they understand what it is that motivates them and everything else? And do they understand that their commitment to community doesn't just stop? So in the case of Tocky, it doesn't stop at Parliament Street or Smithdown or whatever. It's, you've got these skills and you're in Liverpool, you can apply these wherever you go. And that's what kind of, when I'm doing the social leadership stuff, that's what I do, to try and help people to understand that a little bit. And we have like football therapy, we have, you know, community jiu-jitsu as it was then. It's obviously not no more, but that was a social enterprise. That the idea behind that was to improve access to Brazilian jiu-jitsu for people who would never think about that type of stuff. Usually because it can be quite a difficult environment to be in, quite a macho environment and everything else. We were trying to do it differently. Obviously for reasons out of our control, it folded, but you know, there's a lot of that type of stuff. It's just not very well joined up. And most of the time it's not joined up because you can be someone's best mate on Monday, but on Tuesday there's a fund that gets put out and people all jump for it. So one of our mantras has always been collaboration's better than competition every single day of the week. I'll die on that sword. You know, 100%. So.
Another thing is that we're going to have to get... I mean, with the video, we can do subtitles, but for the audio, we're going to have to get someone to dub over your accent so people can understand you. I sound like I'm from St. Helens or something now after living away for so long.
You might have to get someone from Brookside or something to do it then. Put subtitles involved.
See, that's the north end, Brook.
My other half, she's from Kenny, and you do the same. You kind of, when it comes to saying so say car. Say it.
Car.
Car.
What do you say? Car.
You know what I mean? You know, it's different. So Kenny's on the border. You know, Wavertree, where you're from.
How do you say buck?
Buck. I say buck. I don't say book. No, I don't say. I don't think. Oh, do I? I say buck, but I know people probably would say book.
My mum says book.
I like book. Cook. I don't know. But I know what you're saying.
You're questioning yourself now.
I am. Yeah, you see. You know, Honestly, man, I'm going to get that stressed. No, more like, no. No, the accent is strong.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Unfortunately, it's one of them. Not going to say.
So, here's a question for you. The general person, like, my brand is obviously focusing on men, predominantly.
Yeah.
We have a lot of guys coming into the barbershop. They're not all in Liverpool.
Yeah.
I'm a man with mental health issues.
Yeah.
I'm struggling. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What would you say? What would your advice be? Not like, what would you...
So first of all, there's a myth that men don't talk. Men talk. There's no problem with that at all, I guarantee you. But you have to create the circumstances in which the men feel comfortable to talk. Don't always have to talk about mental health. So these are... If they come to your barber chair, and this is more of advice for you, to be honest, the circumstances... you don't always have to talk about mental health to talk about mental health. So we have a rule, really, or is it a rule? It's a saying, I don't know what it is, a first-person project, that all roads lead to mental health and all roads lead away. So we can start talking about fish cakes. Give me 10 minutes, you're talking about mental health, I can guarantee you. We'll find a way to move it on. So it's kind of covert mental health, mental health and stealth, mental stealth. But no, so basically it's about the circumstances that you create. Now, if you're a man accessing that, so we have men's groups, we have men's clubs up and down the city. I will go along to them. I haven't always got the, I'm not always able to sit in on them completely because of other things, but most of the time they're not talking about mental health. Typically they're talking about everything else. But eventually something happens and then a conversation opens up, and all these men, a lot of them who've never met each other, will talk about their most intimate thoughts. They'll talk about things like suicide, thoughts that they've had, attempts that they've made. They will talk about it, and I'm not picking on women, I'm just kind of running with the example. They will talk about it just like women do. It's the circumstances that within which they will talk. So if we approach a fella, or if we expect a fella to just on cue talk about the mental health, it's very unlikely they're going to do that. But if you create the circumstances where that's not the focal point, then they probably will. So if you just have a chat with somebody, and you maybe mention, I always do the thing as well, is and this was in my previous life in the NHS, it was discouraged from opening up and sharing your own personal experience. It was discouraged all the time. Some places they discourage you from even sharing your surname, which I found ludicrous, but whatever. Like, I will lead with, oh mate, I will be the one driving it. They'll talk. They always do. We even had a situation a few weeks ago whereby some guy who we'd never actually met in person, but we'd spoke to quite a lot on the phone. He would speak, but he was, in a bad place, and when he gets in a really bad place, he wants to kill himself, and he will try and do it. And he basically told us on the phone, he used some charming language, and then he's gone, blah blah blah, boom, I'm gonna go and do it. Put the phone down. We had to phone the police. Police went, made it safe, and about a week later, he made contact back with us, thanking us for doing what we did. We didn't do nothing. We just spoke to him, created the circumstances, and then we said to him, we basically done something, what's called a behavioural chain analysis. Now that sounds fancy, it's not that fancy really. It's basically a tool that's used when something happens, it's called a chain analysis because literally it's like a chain, yeah? And you can see, you can map out with somebody, when you're having a one-to-one with them, you can say, do you know this incident that happened the other week where you felt like you wanted to kill yourself? Let's talk about it, right? So we know what happened, and we put that right to the centre of the chain. And then we'll say, what are the things that predispose you to thinking that way? What are the vulnerabilities that you have that make you feel like that? And you just, each vulnerability, it's a new chain on the link, yeah, leading up to the event. And then you go, okay, what are the things? So another chain that comes off that, you might say, what are the things then? We know what your vulnerabilities are, but what are the actual things that happened that led up to that? So it could be, some person said this to me, that happened, I've seen this on the telly, this reminded me of that, blah, blah, blah. You start mapping it out. You've now got one chain that leads to the event, and then another chain coming off it, which tells you exactly what happened. So the event happens. Then you do a chain off that says, well, once that event's happened, how did you manage it? What was the consequences? You map that out with the person. And then you do another chain that comes off the initial event, the activating event, asking what skills and abilities do you have that could prevent that from happening in the future. And basically you help the person to map it out. Now I've just it might have made it sound a bit more complicated than it actually is, but you can do that in a conversation. You don't have to even write it down. You don't have to get any pieces of paper out or anything special. You can literally have that conversation with somebody, and you can learn from it. You don't have to tiptoe around it. This is how we try and work it anyway, and we think it works. We hope it works. It seems to work. Yeah. So
there you go. No more mental health for you.
No more.
You've cured it.
Cure it. Oh yeah, apparently yeah. No, but there's simple things. Like I'm not trying to. This is one of our things. I'm not trying to mystify anything about what we do. Everyone's can do this type of stuff. Safety planning with somebody. It sounds dramatic, doesn't it? But it's not. Safety planning with somebody is literally saying, what are the things that make you feel like the way you... What worst case scenario is you're going to take your own life, right? What are the things that can make you feel that way? Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to prevent every single thing, because it could be things that are out of our control, like bills and stuff like that. But it could be, have we done everything around that bill, for example, that can maybe reassure you that it's in hand? We've got a young woman who we're working with now. I know we're talking about men, but a young woman who we're working with now. Amazing. Young mum, boss. I call her a kid. I shouldn't say that. She's 24, but it's just colloquialism.
I call people who are 34 a kid.
What am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's me language. But she's a boss kid anyway. And she was suicidal. She DM'd us on Twitter because she said she was suicidal. Now, what you do with that? So you get a DM on Twitter. Had the chat using the same techniques that I've kind of spoken about today, our style, if you like. And out of it came that she wasn't really suicidal. Well, okay, she was suicidal, but it wasn't a case that she wanted to die. It was more a case that she didn't want to be here. There's a difference. So why don't you want to be here? And then she broke down into, this is not me doing this. She was able to do this just with a conversation. It turns out that she's got a lot of debt. Unmanaged debt. She runs away from it because she doesn't know how to manage it. She doesn't have a lot of family support. She doesn't have all this stuff, right? A landlord's not the best. All of these things that you can give people the best scientifically proven tablet in the world. Well, it's not going to pay your gas bill. So you have to do these practical things with people. And you have to be able to do that quickly and follow through what you're going to say. So literally, she DM'd us, told us that, met with her the following Tuesday, got a bit more information off it, and then the plan started. We've been working with her now for about 3 months, and all we do is we've plugged her into the appropriate like debt agencies and things like that. She's now got a professional managing that side of things. Someone said you might be eligible for a certain benefit. We've taken along to an appointment with that. I'm doing little bits of coaching here and there, but nothing heavy duty. And that's it. She's no longer suicidal. You know, sometimes it takes that. It doesn't always take like a knee-jerk crisis response. You need to go to hospital, you need to get your sex in and stuff like that. It doesn't take that all the time. But sometimes it does. Good luck. Call me. No, I'm joking. Create the circumstances.
Yeah.
That's it. And the context.
I think we covered quite a lot.
Yeah.
At least for the first one.
Part one.
Yeah, we can always. That's it. Though there's certain people who I envisage, coming back and talking about things a little bit more as time goes on. So.
That's good. I would love to come back. It's been good.
So yeah, if there's anything else you want to add, kind of.
No, if there's any clarity on stuff or whatever, because it's not an easy model to grasp.
Yeah. I mean, if people want to find...
Yeah, if people want to find us, so... and if people want to refer to us, if people want to contact us, it's dead easy. So we have a website, www.firstpersonprojectcic.co.uk. If you can understand that, please caption it. Instagram, obviously, same thing. Twitter, we are on Facebook.
Use Twitter.
Who uses Twitter? Let me tell you, Obama uses Twitter. No, yeah, I use Twitter because I knew Noah and Jesus. That's how old I am. But I still use Microsoft Paint. But no, so the likes of that. Personally speaking, if you want to connect on LinkedIn and stuff, little plug there, please connect.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, DM us, phone us. We're on Lodge Lane as well, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
To an international audience.
Yeah, no one knows what that is.
No.
Not far from Penny Lane. We'll just use that as a...
Oh, yeah, not far from Penny Lane. I mean,
use that as
if
a
you
point.
come to Penny, get a bus, you know, maybe don't walk from Penny Lane unless you've got good legs. Get a scooter.
That's a big hill. That's top of Smithdown.
I know.
Yeah, sweet. So thank you very
Right.
much for coming on.
No,
And
thank you for having me, mate.
appreciate it.
Cheers. It's very much. Do we clap?
Get to your foot rub.
I'm definitely coming on for a massage. I'm telling you now. Don't, honest. I said to me, Ben, I'm going to ask him, you know. It's like being in with Tom Jones and not asking for a song, innit? That's what it's like, innit?
It's not unusual to be alone.
I'd rather you get a massage off you.